Well, now it's on. Sorry for the interference. Awesome. Cool. So good morning, everybody. Well, it's not morning anymore, but I guess for most of you. So today I'm going to talk about cypherpunks and the crypto-nativism. First of all, thank you for inviting me over to the ITU. I've heard a lot in the past several years about the community, the ITU blockchain group, and I couldn't be more excited to be here. My name is Joseph. I did a few things in the ecosystem. I've been like an early meetup organizer, so I can definitely see like a lot of work that has been put into this, and it literally reminds me of one of the first ETCs at the university campus. So please keep on organizing these. So today I'm going to talk about, well, you guessed it, cypherpunks and crypto-nativism or crypto-natives. I guess first question, who is in this ecosystem? Who came to the conference because the cypherpunk values? Can you raise your hands? There's not many of you, but I saw many people wearing the t-shirts, cypherpunk. It's like a nice buzzword, right? So today I want to talk about cypherpunks, the cypherpunk movement, and kind of touch on the things that Skylar opened with the paradigm shift. So these three gentlemen here, Timothy May, Eric Hughes, and John Gilmore from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, these three gentlemen are at the very beginning of the cypherpunk movement. Can we go to the next? So the origins of the cypherpunk movement are in the 1980s. And I picked the topic because I think it's really important, especially on like the academic ground, to talk about where the value set that we are kind of, promoting today, where it began, and like what's the time frame we are looking at. So as Skylar mentioned, like there is the paradigm shifts usually take generations. And here we are looking at the movement that was seeded in the 80s, like 30, 40 years ago, but today has like even more importance than ever. I mean, the importance of the movement is still increasing. So we essentially, the whole movement kind of like wraps around like several essays, let's say. So the first thing that kind of picked up was the Crypto-anarchist Manifesto by Timothy May in the 1988, which is like pretty short appeal to push for like certain values and like certain behavior related to the digital era. In 1992, the year quite a bit of us were born in, there was this team of like cypherpunks. The term was like first used officially on a mailing list, and this was kind of this is often claimed to be the genesis moment of the cypherpunk movement. Then in 1993, another manifesto, the Cypherpunks Manifesto, was published by Eric Hughes, was the youngest gentleman out of the three. And I'm going to go and actually read some parts of these two manifestos later. But I want to stress, like, what happened in the 80s and the 90s, and what kind of like scoped out the urge to actually push for certain types of technologies is the reason why we are here. It motivated a lot of people to then go and build cryptocurrencies and like build the various systems around them. And even though it's like 2023, we are still here and still like quoting these gentlemen. And very likely for the foreseeable future, we still will do this. So can we go next? So let's start with the first piece from the Cypherpunks Manifesto, which touches on privacy. Privacy is a privacy is necessary for an open society in the electronic age. Privacy is not secrecy. A private matter is something one doesn't want the whole world to know about, but a secret matter is something one doesn't want anybody to know. Privacy is the power to selectively reveal oneself to the world. Now you can judge for yourself, like, to what extent are we actually fulfilling this? Like, how deep in our values is like the, you know, the privacy requirement in what we build. One could argue that cryptocurrencies as they exist today, they kind of lost most of it. Like, it would be hard to argue that the cryptocurrencies are actually private. To a lot of extent, and like with certain usage, they can be private, and I think it was even like the original idea, or like the original assumption with Bitcoin, which like sooner or later kind of was disapproved by just the usage and by the fact that people were going to like centralized exchanges and would like reveal their identities, and even further through the like regulatory pushes that push these exchanges and these like service providers to reveal the identities upon request. But I also think it's important to stress that, and that's the reason why I picked this like very first phrase of the manifesto. I think it's like more important than ever that we as a community like push for privacy even with like our own regulators. I come from a country that has changed their like governments or regimes 5 times in the last century. It started as a monarchy in the beginning of the 20th century. In 14 years, in the first 14 years after the First World War, it turned into a republic, which only lasted 2 decades to be taken over by the Nazis and become like a Nazi protectorate. It took 2 years for the country to kind of reshape and start like a new like democratic movement, which was very, very early overtaken by the communists. And then the country basically like locked down for several decades into under the communist government, resulting in the Soviet invasion in 1968. And it took like several more decades for the country to again become a republic and become democratic. And you'll often hear advocates for, you know, kind of the transparency advocates saying like, hey, if you have nothing to hide, then you shouldn't be worried about your privacy. Like, it's fine if the government knows everything about you. And even though you may trust whoever is on that chair, whoever is the current ruler in a particular country today, it doesn't have to be the same person. Don't have to be the same people like 5 years later or like 10 years later. And all of this information that we are basically like providing will still sit somewhere in a database on a piece of paper or now digitally, and can be misused eventually. And that's why I think like this is true more than ever. Can we go next? Another piece, like coming actually a few years back into the Crypto-anarchism manifesto. The technology for this revolution, and it surely will be both a social and economic revolution. This is exactly what we are seeing now with cryptocurrencies and the globalization of the tools that we are using. Has existed in theory for the past decade, 1980s. Like now it has existed for like 40 years. The methods are based upon public key encryption, zero-knowledge interactive proof systems, and various software protocols for interaction, authentication, and verification. This is exactly the stack that we are still building, like after this many years. The moral from this, to me, is that it's kind of obvious, or like it was obvious to these people, but it just takes a long time to actually deliver these things. And there is yet another moral, which is if you as like individuals, as I assume mostly students or enthusiasts, have ideas today which seem far-fetched and seem to be kind of like too early, seem to be like not really based on kind of the you know, mass demand, it doesn't really mean these are ill-headed. It doesn't mean that like you're off. It can just be that, well, the rest of the world just like didn't pick it up yet. So what is this all about? Like what is the cypherpunk movement about? For me, it's about, you know, individual privacy, and the good part of it, based on the crypto anarchy movement, is about just like breaking, let's say, monopolies, like breaking old structures, old power systems. So another quote from the Crypto Anarchy Manifesto: just as the technology of printing altered and reduced the power of medieval guilds and the social power structure, so too will cryptologic methods fundamentally alter the nature of corporations and of government interference in economic transactions. I think this is a powerful statement because it's so old, and I also believe that in this day and age, we are actually living through the phase of being fought from the old structures, the social power structures of today. And basically all of the fluff around crypto and DeFi, even though a lot of that is based on like just hype and speculation, I think fundamentally the core of it is still serving this particular purpose. It's a paradigm shift, just as Skylar mentioned. It's something that we are building to break a power structure that's like very often just like centralized with a few parties. But today, the technologies actually allow us to like participate in these power structures a lot more. And you see this with DAOs, and you see this with like all of the governance systems that are being built around crypto. So enough about cypherpunks. Recently, in the past like 2 years, there is yet another term that emerged: the crypto natives, or like crypto. There has been an endless discussion around like what's crypto. Does crypto stand for like cryptography? Does it stand for cryptocurrencies? I mean, first of all, it stands for, it's just a prefix, right? It stands for something hidden, something maybe secret. And I think like a lot of people are trying to just like define what it actually is, because people are like naturally, you know, semantically using the term, but I don't think anybody actually has an answer, anybody has a definition. We are trying to like search for the definition at Pawnee. You can like read a whole bunch of the interviews with the people that we assume are crypto natives. So I would say it's just like few understand this, right? It's like too early to define the term, but you can participate in defining it. There's few things that can be said about like who are the crypto natives, who are the people like, you know, going to all these conferences and actually like using the technological stack, who don't really care about cypherpunks, right? Most of us like don't think about cypherpunks like on a daily basis. Like I don't. I usually just think about them whenever I'm preparing a presentation. So what can be said about crypto natives? So it's a group of people, it's a demographic that's bound around cryptocurrency usage. It's the community around it. And I think the word usage is very important. It's not just like, it's not just the speculators, the people that would like sit on Bitcoin and say like hodl and like wait to get rich. I wouldn't say it's like even our community. It's also bound to using encryption in daily communication, and a lot of us are doing that with like, you know, using Signal or Telegram or like other means. But also it's a demographic that desires like fundamental changes in social structures. That exactly like the paradigm shift that in Web3 that Skylar was talking about. And most importantly, it's us. I think it's like the people sitting in this room, it's the students, it's the people building the technological stack. So before I just sum this up and finish, I just want to say don't buy the next thing at the face value. So I would actually say cypherpunks have lost. They have lost their generation. At the time when the cypherpunk movement was started, the three gentlemen I showed you earlier were 27, 37, and 41 years old. 30 years after, so these guys are basically boomers. they have lost within their own generations. It's the generation of boomers now sitting in the government, sitting in executive positions in the same banks, in the same financial institutions that are now constraining growth of crypto as an industry. But cypherpunks also succeeded because they caused this social change. They caused this like long-term change in people's mindset because they were able to express and encapsulate the necessity of using certain technological stack and using certain methods to free oneself. And that's basically it. This wasn't supposed to be like anything groundbreaking, just like making sure that people are aware of like where the roots of the ecosystem come from. And that was my whole pitch.